every day there's new stocks that just explode pre-market. I mean, it doesn't even matter what the market's doing. Yesterday, it was obviously like an absolute bloodbath, and somehow there's still names that are being pumped up 40, 50, 60% off of really no news. Like, Dad, I know we were talking back and forth about that workhorse stock. I don't even know what the hell they do. But watching the chart, it's like they're doubling every day for no reason. It's insane.
You know, when you have thousands of people loading up on one name, it's a juggernaut. They could just move a stock short term to unbelievable levels. But when the music stops, it's musical chairs, right?
It's definitely musical chairs. And I mean, it's been though that way. Like the music has stopped several times on several stocks, and then
they move on.
Exactly. So,
you know, it reminds me when I went to college in Denver, there was the Denver local over-the-counter market that was ridiculous. It was similar to this. Like they would bring out anything that had the name solar in it would quadruple overnight. Like a company would start solar cell. And what does solar cell do? If you actually looked into it, they put insulation in between the walls. Had nothing to do with solar energy. And the stock was, up 700% in one day just because it had that name. So
same thing was happening. I don't remember how long ago. I want to say like 2 years ago with all the crypto mining stocks, where you'd see companies like reclassify themselves as a crypto mining stock, and then they would just explode through the roof. So
I want to go back to yesterday. Michael mentioned, getting involved in companies that make the masks, and Triple M and Honeywell. Those are large companies. They don't have the impact, but there's a couple of small ones, and one of them was APT, which I found unfortunately late in the day. And again, that stock's up today. It closed 1916. It's trading at 1995. Every time someone announces that they're forcing people to wear masks, this company goes up. So it's something to keep an eye on, anything to do with masks in the next week or so. And federally, the government should just mandate it. But
I think Etsy is the real winner there. Like breaking down their company and usability with more people being drawn to a site with the coolness factor. The reason I like them more than all these other companies is because they're not sexy. When you look at young people knowing that they have to get a mask, they're most likely going to Etsy. I've seen time and time again people being like, I need to get my own custom mask, go to Etsy. And I've never even owned this stock. I know I think at all-time highs right now. I'm buying some today. I'm sick of seeing it go up and up. It's going up more. I think that's going to probably be trading at 110 pretty quickly here.
Hopefully you don't end the frenzy.
I'm buying Peloton too today. I'm sick of being back on the sidelines there. That has way more room to run. I see the downside is competition. Who? Nordic Trek? Like, I don't see who's actually a legit competitor of theirs that's going to cause any type of dent in that brand. I think they are such a major winner from this. And the argument of someone getting off of a gym membership a few months into the year, well, that's not a thing when you're buying a Peloton bike. Sure, you could stop paying for a monthly thing, but you're way more likely when you spend the money for a bike to be plugged in on going to their memberships. So I think Peloton and Etsy those are my plays today, personally.
Did Peloton end up closing up yesterday? I know it was trying to get some territory. Yeah. Is that something that on big sell-off days you guys look at, is which stocks somehow finish in the positive? As just
like look at Fiverr. That's why I'm planning on getting back in that. Yesterday it was down. It ended up going up at the end of the day, and then down and then up again. So it fell a bit, and then it just showed so much strength on the dip in the overall market. And that's what I've been starting to really try to focus on really bad days. What are these anchors that are showing a lot of strength, where they either are not even ending up down or they barely even scratch the surface on dipping? And Fiverr showed a lot of strength yesterday if you look at the chart.
Yeah, well, I mean, to add to what you're saying, Fiverr and Peloton were like the two of the stocks that slipped into the red late in the day on Tuesday when there was that rally. So maybe the fact that they slipped back into the green at the end of the day yesterday shows that there's a little strength in the market. I kind of think that there might be another sell-off today. Just feels like yesterday, if this is some sort of correction, yesterday seemed a little light. And I don't know, maybe we're still nowhere near out of the weeds yet from the sell-off that happened a couple weeks ago. We never really tested.
We're not even close. The virus is not, it's getting way, way worse. So I think that's the biggest problem here.
Yeah, not only are we not close, but it almost looks like the market wants to retest the lows, which wouldn't be that much lower from where it is now from 2 weeks ago. And if it broke through those lows, I mean, who knows? Maybe there's a much bigger decline here.
You know, we also have the end of the month, and there's been tremendous chatter about repositioning where pension funds got actually overzealous and were more involved in equities and have to readjust and sell equities at the end of this month. So there's billions of dollars supposedly for sale, but that gets matched off as the month gets closer to the end. But
my guess is we'll have a rally going into the holiday, but it's going to be a rough few days before that. Like, I bet you we get a bump going into that 4th of July long weekend.
And the other thing besides the virus that's hanging over the market is still the bank stress test by the Fed. And everyone's scared to death what might come out of that. These banks have adjusted to levels that are lower, I believe, than they were at the low from 2 weeks ago. So that's something else to consider.
Jack, could you kind of go into that a little bit? Because I keep hearing about this bank stress test. And
yeah, well, I mean, the Fed is always doing tests. They basically model, what's going on in the world and how is this going to affect the banks. And they try to be really conservative. Okay, if things are much worse than expected, what can we expect? And the fear out of them doing that is that they're going to come up with a model that is so negative that the banks are going to be forced to cut their dividends by the Fed. And most analysts, I just saw Mayo on, he's a great analyst. He doesn't think that's going to happen, but he's worried about it. So the Fed is constantly doing this. I think every quarter they do stress tests. But this particular one is involving the pandemic, and we'll have to see what comes out of it. But if they cut the dividends, I don't think that's in, most of these stocks. I think people kind of feel Wells Fargo might get cut because it's at a very high dividend rate right now. I think it's around 9. But the hope is that the boards themselves from these companies decide to cut the dividends and not the Fed. You don't want the Fed dictating that kind of move.
So is there a specific date when we're going to see that?
I think it's going on today, actually. I thought it was going to be sometime this week. Maybe it's at the end of today or tomorrow.
And is that something that they'll announce?
Yeah. I think you'll get a handle on that pretty quick.
So that'll be interesting.
I think that's been weighing on the market. The end of the month, the rally, the virus. There's a lot of down reasons, that the market has right now. And I think once we get through this, it could be interesting. If the country starts going to masks, I think people are going to feel a lot more confident about these, problems abating. That's going on in these hotspots.
Yeah, it also seems like there's now talk that, we might have a vaccine way quicker than I was thinking. I mean, they're talking about as soon as the fall.
Yeah, Moderna, I notice, is in some kind of talks, or they are in let's see what it says here. They're in a manufacturing agreement and for the vaccine. And the stock's up about 6-7%.
So reading between the lines on what you just said, you kind of look at it like if we can get through this little pit of choppiness, the market could really, really take off.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because the underlying is still there that we've been talking about. The problem is, it's painful while you're going through it.
Yeah. So, Mike, I know you're big on Nike. They have their earnings today. Did you end up buying any? What are you looking at?
I mean, I own some. I got to reposition. I'm terrible timing on my part getting an Uber yesterday. I'm taking my losses and getting out of that today because that's dipping way more. And I'm just pissed at myself because I called gaming to a T and mistimed the dip thinking it was over. And now I'm in the red deep on DraftKings and Penn on swing trade. So I have to decide if I'm going to cut my losses there or what my game plan is, but not too happy there.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer
yesterday, like one of the most pissed off days I've had in my life.
It's kind of a bummer with Penn where, they ran up so big on Tuesday and obviously that wasn't quite sustainable. And saying that, they weren't even at their all-time highs from the last 3 months. So
I know that's why I thought I was getting in, and even with DraftKings getting in under 40, I thought I was being clever there. And then the sports thing, the narrative like we talked about Monday is now coming to fruition.
Well, going back to what Dad said, I think Penn falls under an example of a stock where if we do get through this and the market wants to turn higher, I mean, you could see that stock really, really explode and go up huge in any given day if the market starts to get hot. It's definitely a momentum stock.
That's why I'm going to just suck it up and stick with those two for another week or two.
Stocks like that, you just have to – that's when you look at the chart and you can get a little scared because there's room down to 27 – and it still looks like a good chart.
I don't get scared, Dad. I get ticked off. I don't scared is not.
It doesn't matter what you call the word.
Well, yeah, I more get enraged because I hate
the amount you lose is the same no matter what the emotion is.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what else are you guys looking at today?
Well, I'm looking at driving up to Montana. So we
should be getting Bob on Winnebago and Camping World.
I bought a little Boeing before the market opened about 20 minutes ago.
Every time I buy Boeing, it immediately has a sell-off.
But I also put in a sell order at 189.5. I'm going to be gone for a few days. And, it wouldn't surprise me if it's back up there by Tuesday.
I should have just gotten out of that stock fully. I don't know what I was doing hanging around there.
I mean, I thought yesterday it was looking interesting again. I love, Bob, whenever I hear you speak, you're always, and you always have been, just long-term, always bullish on the market. And,
well, that's the world. I mean, long-term, the market is bullish.
Yeah. Well, there's people that think that the system is going to collapse because of everything happening.
What are those people? How have they made any living the last 2 decades with that attitude? Where have their returns come?
I think a lot of those people are still in the market. They're maybe underinvested, but I don't think they're 100% cash.
Or they're full of shit and they're trying to just get more money and get people scared. Like, I don't trust a lot of these people.
But I have to laugh at myself because yesterday I was talking about hedging Apple and doing options, and I ended up buying more Apple.
So yeah, I actually did your option. I made a quick buck. I cashed out of them with Square and Apple within an hour. I was talking to Dan. Right when the market started dipping, I had already gotten options right after our call, and then I got out of the options because I was like, screw this. I made a quick buck. I'll just take advantage of that and close them out.
Well, that's what you could always do with options.
Yeah.
It's not only a hedge, it's also a way to play a down market.
Which was great. Like yesterday with Square.
You brought up, I'm pretty sure a couple of weeks ago, Rite Aid on here, right?
Yeah.
Is the ticker RAD on Rite Aid? Yeah. That stock right now is showing as one of the high volume traded stocks this morning. They had good earnings that they reported this morning. They're up 10% pre-market.
I think you also have to look. Albertsons is about to IPO, which is in that arena, the grocery chain. So I think Walgreens, like CVS, those are all stocks to look at right now as possible good picks. When you think about all this virus talk too, they're all winners in that.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting because Rite Aid, based on what's happening the last few weeks with just the maniacs in this market, that could be a stock that gets pumped up way past where it should, just based on,
Might be time to buy.
I mean, it's an interesting stock to look at right now because
what I love about Rite Aid, I see them on every block in New York City. I've been into those things. I couldn't even tell you how many times the last 4 months. They're, it's like a Dwayne Reed or a Walgreens.
If you look at the stock right now, pre-market, it looks like it might really, really break out. And it's weird because it just seems like now when stocks break out, especially the ones that are a smaller amount per share, just because of the psyche that I guess goes into that, you would think a company like Rite Aid isn't going to really trade beyond where they deserve, or maybe a little. But if like the traders get a hold of the name, like you might see that stock go up 40% today with no rhyme or reason.
Yo, Dan, can you pull up that stock for our viewers? And let's go over exactly, Dad, if you can shed some light on this, the uptrend versus a downtrend, because I know we've been talking about swing and day trading. How do you know if a stock based on the chart is trending up or down? Let's go over this here. Even if you want to look at yesterday as an example, like a day chart.
Well, you're talking about Rite Aid?
Sure. Let's use them as an example here.
Rite Aid has actually got an uptrend and a downtrend at the same time. It's a triangle formation.
So let's go over that.
So from the downtrend point of view, if you go back to, you got to look at a year chart.
I have a year chart pulled up here.
So why the year chart? Start with that. Why do you do that right off the bat?
Because you have a better handle on what's going on in the stock over
Why
time.
not a 3-month chart?
You could do a 3-month chart too, but I like to first start at the big picture, and then you can get to the day chart.
Do you usually work your way down where you'll start with year and segment it down like that?
I do. Well, first you notice something on the day chart. Then you go back and look at the year chart. But everyone has their own ways of looking at things. So the year chart, if you look, it has a high of 2388. I don't know what date that was. It was at the end of last year. And the next high was 1993. That was in February, or March. And then the next peak was in April 29th or so. And you draw a line from the peaks all the way down, right?
Okay, so take the high from the low right before it, Dad, as an example, back end of 2019 there.
Right. So if you drew a line all the way down, you would get to a level of about 15 in today's world right now.
Wait, when you say all the way down, where are you looking up
You're
towards?
basically taking your line and you're drawing it from peak to peak.
So the overall peak is, we're talking end of 2019.
Right. From 2019 right to today, if you drew a line at all the high points in the stock, and you'll get 3 of them, and one is the high on that date.
Yeah.
Last year. And then one is right around March 19th or so, and one is around June 8th.
Okay.
So if you draw a straight line off of those tops and bring it up to now, that means the upper end of this line is around 15. Okay.
When you say, what do you mean 15?
Well, that's the price of the stock if you take the line and move it all the way to today.
Like Dad's saying, if you basically follow the peaks.
So where
a lot of charting services allow you to draw a line and then tap it, and it'll keep that line there. So you'll see the upper end of the trend.
So Mike, like the first one's almost at 20. And then if you go down to here, it's right around 19. And then if you go down to here, it's over 16.
Oh yeah, I get that. So what does that do exactly?
All right. So that's the upper end of the trend line. And then the bottom, you do the same thing moving up. The low.
So you got 951.
Yeah, I get it. Okay. So you have the bottom.
So you draw that line up and you'll see a triangle, right? So the stock can break out of either side of that triangle, and that's probably the direction it'll take. Otherwise, it's going to trade within those lines.
When you say you see a triangle, what triangle? Where?
Well, no, it means if you go from the top to the end and then the bottom to the end, it forms a triangle because of the way you're shaping it. Where you have an diagonal line going from the top down, and then you have a
straight line from the upper top one of 2388 all the way down to today at around 15, and the bottom which was a little before that date, sometime in December. It was about $7.46. And then the next line was 9.25. So you end up somewhere, around 11. So that's the triangle. And as long as the stock trades within that, some people will trade it off of that line. Like if it gets on that up to that line, they're selling it. If it gets down to the line, they're buying it. And if it breaks out of that triangle in either direction, that's the new trend, either up or down. So for today, this stock is trading 14.29.35. It's still below the 15, but it's making an attempt to break out on the upside. But a lot of people will probably have a ton of stock for sale.
I don't think so. I think there's a lot of idiots that, just like Dan was saying, buy on the name.
Yeah, but when you have a name like that, there's enough institutional money in it where if there's uncontrolling buying, you would think it's going to be met by serious sellers.
Davey Day Trader, I could say today, saying, this is rad. We're going to town on this.
But this stock has also got tremendous, you'll see a lot of trading going on between 12 and 13, 12 and 14. That's where most of the support is in the stock, most of the action. So once the stock gets above 14, it's going to be hard to go below that number because there's so much support.
It's going to open above 14. So that's where the stock might really break out today.
Well, we'll see.
I think the name's going to help it a lot.
Yeah, so right now it looks like the Dow is going to open down maybe 150, 160 points, which is how yesterday started off, I think. My memory.
The one thing to mention on charting is everyone reads charts differently, and they work until everyone's looking at the same thing, and then they don't work anymore because everyone's trying to do the same thing.
That's the thing. I keep looking at everyone's chart analysis, and I see this. It reminds me of taking geometry back in the day, where I feel like this is not how I come up with this at all. And I come to the same solution, but in a completely different manner.
It does work very, very short term. There's no question about it, as long as everyone's not looking at the exact same thing.
And I think there's enough different types of people playing the market where it's impossible for everyone to look at it in the same thing. I mean, one of the things that the people who are super bearish, who think the market's going to drop big, are looking at is they're looking at the downward trends and they're looking at the lows that we tested 2 weeks ago and the retest of that and what happens from there. And if it breaks those, they then look at where it goes down from there and where the next level of support is. So, you have a lot of people saying if the S&P breaks 3,000, it can kind of go all the way down to 2,700 fairly quickly.
Or there's people saying 2,850, people love just rounding out things with that, I feel like.
Yeah. So,
when you're talking about support and resistance in individual stocks, that's based on a lot of people who got in or out at those different levels. So that's why it's so important from a fundamental point of view. If someone bought a stock at 27, and there were a lot of people that bought it at 27, and it's trading at 25, in their heads, they're thinking, I got to get out of this thing at 27. And that's why there's resistance at that level, because people are anchored at a price. So, that's why you'll see stocks have a hard time getting through certain levels. And that's where the resistance comes from. Just a lot of volume at one level.
Makes sense. Like you said, Dad, technical charts work until they don't, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I also think this type of situation is a good opportunity to look for the really strong names and stay away from nonsense names, especially when you actually have some sort of correction. It's, you got everything on sale. So
like Microsoft after yesterday.
Yeah, why look at crappy names that haven't run up when you have the good ones that have?
Or Facebook's another prime example. That sell-off yesterday with that whole Black Lives Matter boycott. Let's be real, it's Facebook. I love when these dips happen on their short term losing out on a little ad revenue. What are we talking about here? You know, it's in the scheme of things, just like that. I know this is different than the Cambridge Analytic thing with companies taking a stance, but Facebook will do something to appease them.
Yeah.
So that sell off to me was a bit overdone. And I bought more Facebook back at 225 a couple weeks ago after that dip at like 224 and change. I'm going to be buying more if there's any more dip today on them. Because I love the negative news on Facebook buying into that because it doesn't change anything about the fundamentals of that dominant behemoth. If anything, it just makes it more sexy to buy in.
So let's do our picks of the day here.
Go ahead.
I told you I'm going with Peloton and Etsy.
Peloton and Etsy. I mean, I think today is all about patience. I'm not going to be necessarily buying a stock at the open. I think the market might roll over again today. I could be completely wrong here, but I've been kind of keeping an eye on Waste Management.
I own Waste Management. I'm down a little on it. I added to the position yesterday, actually.
Well, yeah, that's a name that once I'm ready to start buying stock, if I feel like the market's going to turn, I'll probably look at Waste Management.
That and Dunkin' Donuts I loaded up more yesterday on, besides Boeing.
And Bob?
Yeah, you know, I said sell Alcoa the other day. And
yeah, they went down huge yesterday.
Yeah, if that stock gets down 10.5 area, I would look to reload on that one. Their earnings are due in about 2.5 weeks.
How about Sabre, Dad? I bought more of that yesterday.
Well, Sabre is all going to be based on the closing and opening. I mean,
yeah, it's enough already. This company needs to start stepping it up.
It will react when the airlines go back up. Sabre will go back up. Unfortunately, it's a waiting game at this point. Right?
I'm just hearing too many people saying that they're not flying anytime soon. I'm even in that camp. I'm not interested in even getting on a flight, and I'm young. So I'm wondering what I'm even doing in airlines.
Well, there you go. All right, let's, Dad, have a safe drive. We're not going to be doing this tomorrow because Bob is going to be in Montana on vacation, and we'll see everyone Monday. Mike and I might look to bring a guest on Monday or something like that.
Yeah, let's do that. Maybe we can convince Leon to get on the horn.
Yeah, I'm not back till Wednesday. So,
all right, cool. Everyone have a good day.
Good
Take
luck.
care.